It was humiliating, really collapsing in the middle of the office like I had no spine left in me. But the worst part wasn't the exhaustion or the sting of failure. It was the fact that he saw me. He didn't just see Mehe Stade. The clock had already crept past 9. The city buzzing outside with neon and restless footsteps. When I found myself slumped over the long mahogany conference table, head buried in my hands. The meeting had been brutal, the kind that leaves you hollow, stripped down until every word sounds like an accusation and every glance feels like a judgment. I thought I was alone. I prayed I was alone. But then there was Daniel. I heard the soft click of his shoes against the polished floor. Steady. Unhurried. A sound that made my chest tighten with something I didn't want to name. He should have left hours ago. He always stayed late. But never this late. And when I finally lifted my head, I saw him standing there, jacket draped over one arm, his shirt sleeves rolled to the elbow, tie loose around his neck. His eyes, those damn steady blue eyes, were fixed on me like he was seeing something he wasn't supposed to. "You look like hell," he said, voice quiet, more observation than insult. "Thanks," I muttered, half hoping sarcasm would drive him away. But Daniel wasn't the kind of man you could push off with sharp edges. He had this frustrating way of leaning closer, of refusing to let the silence swallow what you couldn't say. "I mean it," he continued, pulling out a chair beside me. "You've been carrying too much." I laughed, though it sounded more like a crack in glass than humor. "That's the job, isn't it? You don't get to say you're tired." The words hung there, heavier than I expected. My chest burned as if holding them in for too long had finally left scars. I turned away, eyes on the window where the city lights blurred into streaks. Like the world outside was moving too fast and I was the one left behind. And then it happened. I didn't see him move, but I felt it. The warmth of him, the solidity of his presence, the way his arm brushed against mine. And before I could stop myself, before pride could scream at me to shove him away, I leaned into it, into him. His arm circled my shoulders slowly, cautiously, as though waiting for me to flinch. But I didn't. God help me. I didn't. I let myself fold into his chest, let his steady heartbeat drown out the chaos in my head. "You don't always have to be the strong one," Daniel whispered. His breath stirred against my hair. Words so simple they broke something deep inside me. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that people like me didn't get that luxury, that in a city built on ruthless ambition, weakness was a luxury no one could afford. But the truth was, in that moment, I didn't care about the city, the office, or even the sharp echo of failure gnawing at my pride. All I cared about was that someone had stayed, that someone saw me and didn't run. When I finally pulled back, my eyes burned, though I would never call it tears. Daniel studied me carefully, like he was mapping each crack in the facade I had so carefully constructed. "You think you're holding the world up alone," he said, his voice firmer now, almost daring me to contradict him. "But you don't have to. Not with me here." Something twisted inside my chest. Hope. Maybe. Or maybe fear. Because if I let myself believe him, if I let myself believe in him, what then? I pushed away from the table, standing too fast, shoving my hands into my pockets just to keep from shaking. "You don't know what you're talking about." He rose too, slow and deliberate, giving me space yet closing the distance in a way that felt inevitable. "I know exactly what I'm talking about. You've built walls so high you can't even breathe behind them. And I'm not asking you to tear them down overnight. I'm just asking you to let me in." My heart stuttered. My mind raced with every reason why this was a mistake, why Daniel and I couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't work. He was a colleague, a friend at best. The one person in this office who looked at me without the cold calculation everyone else carried. If I let this happen, if I let him happen, I risked losing even that. And yet, standing there in the muted glow of the empty office, with his hand just barely brushing mine, I knew I had already lost the fight. Because the truth was, I didn't want him to leave. The weeks that followed blurred together in a rhythm of stolen glances, lingering touches, and moments that should have meant nothing but carried the weight of everything I refused to admit. Daniel didn't press. He never demanded more than I could give. Instead, he waited patient, steady, the way only he could be. But his presence was like gravity, pulling me closer no matter how fiercely I tried to resist. One night, though, resistance cracked wide open. The board had ripped me apart in another meeting, their words sharper than knives, cutting into all the places I already doubted myself. I held it together in front of them, jaw locked, voice steady. But the second the elevator doors slid shut, I felt the air vanish from my lungs. By the time I reached my apartment, I was unraveling. And Daniel was there. He hadn't said he was coming. He hadn't asked permission. He just showed up at my door, tie gone, sleeves rolled, as if he had known I wouldn't survive the night alone. "You don't look okay," he said softly. "I'm fine." I lied, because that was the only language I knew. But Daniel stepped inside anyway, closing the door behind him with the quiet assurance of someone who had already decided not to leave. He didn't touch me at first. He just stood close, his presence filling the silence until the silence broke me. "I can't keep doing this," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "Doing what?" "Pretending I'm not falling apart." The admission slipped free before I could catch it. And with it, the weight I had carried for so long threatened to crush me. My shoulders shook, my throat burned, and I hated myself for letting him see me like this, raw, undone, human. But Daniel didn't flinch. He stepped forward, closed the space between us, and finally pulled me into his arms. I sank into him like I had that night in the office. But this time, there was no shame, no pretending, just the truth of his chest beneath my cheek, the strength of his arms holding me together when I couldn't do it myself. "You don't have to keep breaking yourself just to prove you're unbreakable," he murmured into my hair. Something inside me shattered then, not in pain, but in release. The walls I had spent years building cracked under the weight of his words. And for the first time, I let them fall. I let myself want him. We kissed that night. It wasn't desperate or rushed. It was slow, deliberate, like the answer to a question we had both been asking for months. His lips were warm, sure, tasting of quiet promises and unspoken vows. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine, and his voice was steady as he said, "I'm here, for as long as you'll let me be." I should have been terrified. I should have pushed him away again. But instead, I nodded, because for once in my life, I wanted to believe in something more than my fear. The days after weren't easy. Office politics didn't magically dissolve. The pressure didn't vanish. And my doubts didn't disappear overnight. But everything was different, because I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. Daniel was there in the small things. In the way he'd leave a coffee on my desk before a brutal meeting. In the way his hand would brush mine when no one was looking. In the way he'd catch my eye across the room and ground me when the world threatened to tilt. And when nights grew heavy, when exhaustion clawed at me until I thought I'd break. He was there too, reminding me with every embrace, every touch, every whispered word that I didn't have to fight alone. The real turning point came one evening when I finally told him the truth. Every fear, every failure, every wound I had hidden under layers of armor. I expected judgment. I expected him to see me as weak. Instead, he smiled, not a mocking smile, but one that held me like sunlight, warm and unwavering. "You think all of that makes you weaker," he said, taking my hand. "But it doesn't. It makes you real. And it makes me love you even more." Love. The word hung in the air, sharp and terrifying and beautiful. My chest tightened, breath caught, and I felt the familiar urge to run, to protect myself from the risk of losing everything. But then his thumb brushed over my knuckles, steady and sure. And for once, I didn't run. "I love you too," I whispered, the words foreign and fragile on my tongue, but truer than anything I had ever said. We're still figuring it out, how to balance the sharp edges of work with the softness we found in each other. Some days are harder than others. Some nights, the weight of the world still threatens to crush me. But the difference now is that I know I won't collapse alone. Because the night he saw me at my weakest, the night he stayed instead of leaving, something changed forever. Daniel didn't just hold me off, showed me that being seen, being loved, being vulnerable, didn't make me weaker. It made me whole. And in his arms, for the first time in years, I finally felt like I was home. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.